Go ahead and say your name for me just so I get a level.
My name, Jose Jimenez.
Yes. Very nice. Great.
Cool. So first, could you just tell me the basic story of Sirens of Titan? Just what is the story?
The basic story?
The basic.
That's a long answer.
So just repeat his question too.
Basic story is about the richest man in the world who is sent on this interplanetary odyssey to find the meaning of life. That's the shortest way I can put it.
That's a good description of it.
And along the way, he finds out the bitter truth.
Hold on,
Oh, they shut the door.
So how did you first encounter the book? Like, when did you read the book?
Well, I originally read the book when I was in my early 20s, and absolutely loved it. It's a very, very funny, crazy book, and nobody writes like Vonnegut does. He's got a great sense of humor, and the book was funny and sad and very, very meaningful and poignant. And I wrote to his publisher to get the rights to do it as a play with our theater company, the Organic Theater, and in Chicago. And amazingly enough, I got a response saying that we could do it on the condition that Mr. Vonnegut could approve the adaptation. And I said, great, I'd love to have him as involved as possible. And as things turned out, he was coming to Chicago while we were in rehearsal, and so he ended up sitting in during our previews and helped us reshape the play. And he said, when he first saw it, he said, "You're being much too kind to my adaptation." He said, I think you have to imagine I've been dead for 10 years and take some liberties with this, because he said, I wrote a book and you're doing a play, and there are things that just really have to change. And he made these very, what we would have thought extreme changes in things we would never have dared to do. But he encouraged us to go there, and it was absolutely wonderful. One of the most fabulous things in my life was being able to spend time with Kurt Vonnegut and to talk to him not just about the Sirens of Titan, but about his attitude about life and about war. He wrote the book as a response to World War II, which I thought was really interesting. He said that nobody ever understood that that's really what the book is about. Because the idea of it is what he's saying in the book is that he felt used. He felt that he had been a soldier in the army. He had been captured. He had been almost killed many times. He had watched entire cities vaporized from bombings, and he came out from. He was in a meat locker during one of the bombings of Dresden, and came out and discovered everything was gone. It was like World War III for him, and he said, "What was the point of all this?"
Hold on, guys. We're filming.
So he ended up writing another book, Slaughterhouse-Five, where he was much more clear about the fact that it was about the Second World War.
Talk, if you could, a little bit about your actual production. Like, what did it look like? Who was in it? What was the aesthetic you were going for?
Well, the fact that it was about World War II, and we realized that characters were stand-ins for other famous people. That one of the characters is this, rich guy from Newport, Rhode Island, who is Winston Niles Rumford, who I think is supposed to be Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The way that he describes him in the book, and the way his speaking style and so forth. And so when we did our production, we had him very much looking and acting and sounding like Roosevelt. And he was played by Dennis Franz, who was a member of our company, and my wife Carolyn played his wife Beatrice as Eleanor Roosevelt, and even had a set of false teeth to make her look more like her. And the book, it's
Let's go back to talking about the book before I'm going to put a sign up or something.
Sorry.
it's okay.
Everybody's coming for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so go back a little bit to talking about Carolyn playing Beatrice as Eleanor.
Yeah. Our production was, we used all kinds of things. We used projections. We used, we had a great set design by a fellow named Jim Moronic, who made it all out of string. And we projected on this wall of stretchy string, and the actors were able to enter and exit right through this what looked like a solid wall.
There were like platforms and stuff too, right?
There were platforms, but they would kind of appear out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So everything it was a very minimalist looking approach. Not all that different than what you're doing with this production, actually. It was. I've always felt that it's important to let the audience do the work, and rather than trying to create everything. I mean, you've got scenes that take place on Mercury and Mars and Titan, which is a moon of Saturn. I think it's kind of interesting right now, as we're doing this production, that there's all of this excitement about Saturn, with the probe that's been orbiting Saturn is now finally going through the rings and giving us the views of that planet that we've never seen before. I mean, everything seems to be kind of coming together in a weird kind of way. And Vonnegut's line about pretend that I've been dead for 10 years, this last month is the 10th anniversary of his death. And so I kind of feel that he's come back, that he's here with us, that he's in the chronosynclastic infundibulum and is making his appearance now.
What do you? I know we've talked about this. Like, what do you think about like some of the current events that line up with the story that make it resonate today in a way that we might not have even suspected when we first started talking about doing it?
Yeah, it's there's something. Someone pointed out early on in when Donald Trump appeared on the scene during the debates, that he seemed like a character created by Kurt Vonnegut. And I think that's really true. There's something about him that's so kind of larger than life and completely insane that it doesn't seem possible in the real world. He's like a cartoon character, and but yet here he is, now President of the United States, running the world. And I would love to know what Vonnegut would make of all of this. I think he would have a good laugh.
Are there any specific questions you wanted to ask, David?
About the previous production, or what you guys?
About anything to do with this?
What about you two when you first were approached him about doing it?
I guess we didn't really talk about that.
Your relationship when he came to you,
and if you could
your help.
Pretend that you're talking to a completely detached interviewer and not me.
Be like, well, Ben, 25 years or however long it's been since you did the production. What feelings it brought to you?
I got to spend a lot of time with Ben Rock when we did a play at Sacred Fools called Taste, and we talked about things, and at one point I think he let it be known that he was very interested in the fact that we had done an adaptation of the Sirens of Titan, and could I find a copy of it for him? And I really didn't even have a script at that point. I looked around, it was like it had been lost in the shuffle, and I knew that the public library in Chicago had kept an archive on Organic Theater's work, and I pointed Ben in that direction, but he got in touch with them, and they sent him a copy of the script after getting permission, not just from me, but from the Vonnegut estate. And he and his wife Alicia liked the script and said, "Let's see if we can figure out a way to do this," and to revive something that's been sort of literally disappeared for 40 years, I think is a monumental achievement.
How about that feeling when he first approached you, compared to was there struggles producing a sci-fi show? Because that's one of the things that we talked about with previous people here, is that the thought of creating the sci-fi experience on stage, like what issues did you go through, and did you advise them of anything to watch out for that you had problems with when you guys first created it?
We talked about our production, but I think Ben had his own ideas, and I felt that's the way it should be. We shouldn't be trying to recapture something that's happened, 40 years ago. And I thought that his approach to it was spectacular. I think there's things that, he did some rewriting. It was kind of fun to come back to that script so much, later. And the suggestions that he and Lisa had were so helpful and good, and we explored a lot of things. I also felt in some weird way that I was more equipped to understand this play than I was when I did it originally. That there's something about having that time, and seeing, you see so much during your lifetime that is, you can't believe some of it, how absurd it all seems, and how awful some of it can be, and how wonderful. And I think all of those things are part of this show.
Well, that's beautiful. The time, the 40 years since you first experienced the play to now, you've experienced a little bit more of what Malachi might have experienced in his life.
Well, I feel kind of like, when I met Vonnegut was probably close to the age that I'm now, not quite as old, but almost. And I learned a great deal from him. That was the other thing. One of the things we talked about was the war in Vietnam, which he was also very strongly opposed to. But what he said to me was, he said, you really can't criticize the war because you didn't fight in it. And he felt that because he had been really, serving in the Army during World War II, that he had the requirements to be able to criticize it. It was, he's kind of like, if you haven't been there, you really don't know what you're talking about, I think is what he was saying to me.
Now, did you talk about that actual him seeing the show yet? Have you talked about that? His experience of actually.
Yeah, you did a little bit, but yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about what it was like to see it the first time, like when you came in and saw it, despite our fraud production.
I really like what Ben has done with the show. I think that he gave it a kind of a fun 50s sci-fi look, which I think is great. And the whole idea, of kind of the flying saucers and the, silver spacesuits and the fishbowl helmets, as Vonnegut calls them. All of these things that are sort of artifacts of science fiction back in the day. It makes it fun. And it's great to, I think, I actually would say that I think Ben's production is far funnier than ours was when we did it.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's one thing that the artist said too. That what's his name? Gabe.
Oh,
he was like he read it so differently, and then he saw the play. He's like, it's so much funnier than I read it.
Yeah.
Gabe Liner.
Yeah, Gabe. He's like, oh man, I read it so seriously. I don't know what else.
I think we got plenty.
Anything for the Sacred Fools? Because I also told Pat and Pedrick that we'd love to possibly use some of this footage for grants. So if there's anything about the Sacred Fools Theater Company and working with them in the past, or
Yeah.
your ongoing relationship with them and what you hope for this company.
Well, I love working with Sacred Fools. it reminds me of the Organic Theater Company. And the thing that I like best about them is that they have tremendous guts, that they will do things on stage that most people would run as far as they could in the opposite direction. I think that with theater, you have to kind of go the extra distance, and you cannot censor yourself, and that's one of the things about this company that I like, and I think that it's a very talented group of people, and I've been able to see some of the other productions that they've done, and I'm never disappointed.
Great. Any last things about it for the hope for the future? You see that we've come from one space to this space. We're constantly growing.
Yeah. No, I love the new theater. I love the fact that there are 5 theaters here now, and that the Sacred Fools has got absolutely no problem filling every single one. As a matter of fact, not only do they fill them, but they've got 2 or 3 productions sometimes going in the same theater, and they have the Serial Killers, which is a way of developing new work, and these are it's a living theater. It's not the fact that they're doing a play that was kind of dusted off an old play, 40-year-old play, and brought it back to life, I think just indicates how lively this theater is. And, people talk about me reanimating things. Well, I think they're the real reanimators.
Any last little fun little song about like "Long Live Sacred Fools"?
Long live Sacred Fools.
Cool. Great. Thank you so much.